Welcome back to Never Enough Novels for my first reading update of the year. These are my more informal videos where I share a peek into what I'm currently reading, as well as what might be next on my TBR. I also have my first DNF of the year to talk about today. Plus, with these videos, I usually like seeing a glimpse into like a bit of the personal lives of fellow booktubers or bloggers that I love. So I also want to share a few non-bookish things that I've been loving lately. Let me know in the comments if there's anything else you want to hear about or want me to talk about in these videos. Let's dive right into the books that I'm currently reading. First up on my Kindle is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I have had this on my radar for ages because it feels like it pops up on every book list featuring books that you'll love if you enjoy Fourth Wing or ACOTAR or any of those other romantasy type books. So I've kind of had it hanging around in the back of my mind for a while, and the hold finally came through on Libby. So I snagged it and started reading it immediately. I'll admit I have high expectations because so many people have raved about it, but I was a little bit wary because sometimes these romantasy books just don't live up to that hype. But I can honestly say so far I think about like 50% of the way through and adoring it. I am so happy I decided to read this, and I highly recommend it to everyone else because it has just absolutely filled that void left by Fourth Ring or as I'm waiting for Onyx Storm to come out. This definitely isn't a super intense romantasy book, so I also think it would be great for readers who don't normally like to get bogged down in like huge descriptions of new worlds or really intense battles or something. Our main character is Ceres, who is a human girl living in this land where everything is dusty and dry and water is your most precious resource. And she's kind of scrappy and helps keep her brother alive and does what's necessary to survive in this wasteland. But one day she gets caught stealing and is brought to like the evil queen's palace. And in a desperate attempt to escape, she starts to pull out the sword that has been in place for like hundreds of years. And as a result, this Fey man pops out through a portal and takes her back to his realm. That guy is Kingfisher, who is our male main character, and he is a ruthless, brutal Fae who is now tasked with working with Ceres to try and figure out how to manage this Quicksilver substance that the sword was placed in. So, as it turns out, Quicksilver has the ability to transport people or Fae from one realm to another. But since this sword was placed in its spot hundreds of years ago, it has stopped all transportation, so people have been stuck in their own realms. Ceres has a special ability to, I guess, manipulate different types of metals, and for some reason, she seems to be able to make this Quicksilver do different things. So she can possibly open up this portal again, and she also should have the ability to create these relics that will help anyone who passes through the portal to prevent them from like basically going insane. Because if you go through these portals without any sort of protection, the Quicksilver will get into your body and kind of inhabit your brain and just like take over. So far in the story, Kingfisher and Ceres are like reluctantly working together. They detest each other, which is so much fun, but there's also a huge amount of chemistry between them. And what I really like about this book so far is that it just doesn't take itself too seriously. There have been so many moments where I've just like laughed out loud because of what's happening, and kind of normal things that I would expect from romantasy. I kind of turns them on their head a little bit and gives you something that was unexpected. And like I said, the story is not too intense or really hard to get into. It's not like you have to slog through 200 pages of world building before you get to any sort of action. So this has just been a really fun romantasy so far, a little bit different from like the heavy ones that I've read recently. And I think a lot of people will love it. The next book I'm reading is called Dream Girl Drama by Tessa Bailey. This is actually the third book in her sports romance series. So the first one was Fangirl Down, and then there was the Au Pair Affair. You don't really have to read them in order, but they do just reference these characters in previous books. So I kind of knew who Sig and Chloe were from the Au Pair Affair. Also, now we know like which couples get together, although in romance novels, you kind of know who's going to end up together anyway. This does work really well as a standalone also, because the focus is on Sig and Chloe. So Sig is a hockey player, and Chloe is a girl that he meets at a country club after his truck breaks down and he needs some help. These two immediately hit it off and like heavy sparks are flying, but nothing really happens with them that first night. They both have other places to be and they are just eager to see each other again. But that happens a lot sooner than they expect. See, Sig is going to meet his dad's new girlfriend and Chloe is at the house. As it turns out, Sig's dad has an announcement because he is now getting married to Chloe's mom. So Chloe and Sig are going to be step siblings. Obviously, with this huge new change in the dynamic, Chloe and Sig are shocked and frustrated, but agree that nothing more can happen between them. So they agree to keep things platonic. But Chloe is desperate to kind of get out from her mother's controlling thumb. So she actually goes with Sig back to Boston, and he is going to help her kind of learn how to be more independent and set herself up in the city. Obviously, this has thrown them together now many, many times because Chloe is so reliant on Sig for basically everything as he kind of teaches her how to live alone for the first time. And the chemistry has not gone away. So I'm about halfway through so far, and it is so fun watching these two interact. And I mean, there's obviously like the sexual chemistry there, but they're also just really good together as people. Like they're very different, but you can see how they fit perfectly together. So I love that there's like the forbidden aspect of this relationship, but also it's just two people getting to know each other kind of as friends first and seeing that there might be something more there. Tessa Bailey is one of my all-time favorite authors for a reason, and this is absolutely lives up to my expectations for her so far. So I highly recommend this one, Dream Girl Drama by Tessa Bailey. I was actually going back and forth between two different audiobooks trying to figure out which one I wanted to listen to. The first one was called The Favorites by Lane Fargo, and that has been like the talk of the town so far in 2025. The Favorites has been likened to Daisy Jones by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So if you loved that book, then I've heard that this one will also be very similar vibes. So it's about this dynamic ice dancing pair, and the story is told full cast on audio through the eyes of like a documentary about what happened over the course of their lives leading up to this, I think, significant moment at the Olympics where like everything fell apart. So supposedly throughout the story, you're supposed to get all of the background of these two and kind of how they rose to fame and then like their great downfall. I started listening to it and I mean, honestly, only got, I think, 2% of the way in, but something about it just didn't catch my attention right away, which I think is unusual. So far, everyone has said it has been utterly captivating to the point where they cannot stop listening or can't put the book down. So I think I am definitely the exception here, and I might still go back to it at some point. Maybe I just wasn't in the right mood at the time. But again, if you really liked Daisy Jones, then I would recommend The Favorites as well, because so many people have been talking about this book and loving it so far. I just don't think it was for me right at this time. So instead, the book that I picked was All the Missing Pieces by Catherine Cowles, and I found this thanks to Libro FM and their affiliate program. And this one is a romance, but also a mystery, so that aspect definitely intrigued me. And I have also heard rave reviews about this book from a few other friends on Bookstagram. I hadn't read this author before, so she's new to me, so I wanted to give it a try because of all the great reviews that I've heard so far. The basic concept is our main character, Ridley, is a podcaster who does like a true crime podcast. And the reason she started this is because her twin sister mysteriously disappeared, I think 5 years ago. Ridley has never been able to figure out what happened, but now she kind of travels around the country in her van helping to solve cold cases. So she's in another small town and she meets the sheriff, Colt, right away, and they do not hit it off at first. Colt is sick and tired of reporters who are flocking to his town in the wake of a disaster, and he has no interest in this new podcaster who's like stirring up trouble. But Ridley has some other motives for actually tracking down this specific case, and she is thinking she might be able to link it to her own sister's disappearance all those years ago. So I haven't gotten super far into this one yet. I think I'm at like maybe 25 or 30%, but I'm definitely enjoying the fact that there is like heavy focus on kind of the mystery here and like tracking down this case. And the romance has been kind of put to the side so far, but you can tell things are brewing, which I really like. So right now, this feels very similar to other kind of true crime podcast type books that are out there, like Listen for the Lie, I think, by Amy Tintera that came out last year. So it has similar vibes to some of those, which I really liked and enjoyed. So if you enjoy that style as well, this book is definitely worth a try. I'm intrigued to see where this goes and how she might be able to link this current situation with her sister's disappearance all those years ago. And obviously, I'm curious to see where the romance goes as well. These two have great chemistry also. So that part I think is going to be so much fun once we eventually get there. It's definitely a bit heavier than romances that I normally read because it has the significant mystery aspect. And obviously, they're hunting down someone who has been like kidnapping women. But I really like that it's kind of a mix between the two genres so far. Then I just want to quickly share the book that I did not finish this year. So it's my first DNF of 2025. Of course, we're only like 8 days into the year, but this one was so bad that I just literally could not continue listening. And it was called You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. So again, I was just looking around for an audiobook and came across this one, and I thought it sounded interesting. It's about like a woman who rents an Airbnb, and this also had like mystery or thriller and romance vibes because the guy that she rents the Airbnb from, there's like this crazy insta love connection, and he's like obsessed with her right off the bat, but something is obviously weird going on with him and his small town, and she finds out that like the person that was there before her went missing. I only made it like 20% of the way through the book. It's not a long book, and it was only I think 8 hours in total on audio, but I was dying slowly inside listening to it. There were just so many like cringeworthy moments. Like the guy became instantly obsessed with her and just kept repeating like Grace, 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 her blue, blue eyes, like over and over again. And she definitely had something really weird going on as well. Even in the time that I read it, like some ridiculous things happen. So I posted this on my Instagram stories because I was like, guys, I just cannot keep reading this book, but I'm curious to find out what happens. So I had more responses to that Instagram story than probably anything else I've posted. Literally, like dozens and dozens of people responded and were just like, I detested this book. It was so bad and so hard to get through. I did find out what happened. A few people actually gave me the ending, and it sounded just absolutely unhinged. So this is one that I'm really glad I did not finish, but I just thought it was so funny that so many people had a similar experience as me with this book. And I've kind of been told to just stay away from this author in general if you don't like this type of writing. So good to know for the future. And then I just want to quickly share the two books that I'm thinking about reading next. First one is Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young. This is kind of the sequel to Out on a Limb, which I think came out last year. And I received this from Dell Romance. So I wanted to read the first book first. So I just finished Out on a Limb not long ago and adored it. It is a surprise pregnancy trope, which I normally don't like, but I loved that book so much. It was so funny and so charming and heartwarming. So now I'm really excited to try Out of the Woods because it features the married couple, Sarah and Caleb, who played a pretty significant role in Out on a Limb. So I'm excited to see where their story goes because this is one of those romance books where it's a married couple who are kind of struggling and get a chance to reconnect on this like wilderness camp / expedition. So I love any chance to see people struggling in the woods because that would absolutely be me as well. And I also just like the idea of a romance book that features a couple that's already married because that's such a realistic situation where people go through tough times in their marriage and like get a chance to find their way back to each other. On a completely different note, the other book that I'm considering next is The Last Room on the Left. This has major The Shining vibes because it's about our main character, a woman who agrees to become the caretaker of a remote resort over the winter. While she's there, she finds a dead body and like she doesn't know if the killer is still around. She also has been having some like drinking problems and issues in her personal life. So I think we've got a little bit of an unreliable narrator here, and we're not sure if the things that she's seeing or experiencing are actually real or if they're all in her mind. So I obviously a very different vibe from the romances I've been reading lately, but I think this one sounds so exciting because I'm a big Stephen King fan. So I loved The Shining, the book, not the movie. The book is so much better, but I'm excited to see kind of the similarities here and where this one ends up. And then I just want to quickly share a few personal updates of things that I've been loving lately or enjoying. Starting off with shows, one of the shows that I absolutely adored is called The Day of the Jackal. I don't normally really binge watch things because I like to spread them out and slowly enjoy them, but I finished this I think in less than a week because I was so hooked on this story. It's about an assassin who is a sniper and he is so good at his craft that he takes out really high profile clients for tons and tons of money. So throughout the show, he is being hunted down by an MI6 agent who kind of keeps closing in on who his true identity is, and it's like this game of cat and mouse as he's trying to take down this like significant target, and she kind of knows where he's at and what his next target is, but is trying to figure out how he's making these jobs work. It's so intense and I think really clever and creative, showing how he does his job and the ways he comes up with to get at the targets, as well as her job in MI6. And there's definitely a bit of both characters you're like rooting for and rooting against at the same time because they're definitely like both morally gray characters. I mean, obviously an assassin, it's like bad guy, but the MI6 agent also does things that are definitely morally questionable. So there's not a true case of like this is the good guy and this is the bad guy here, which made the whole story even more compelling. The other show that we've been watching is Squid Game 2, which I feel like I haven't heard hardly anything about. I mean, the first Squid Game show was such a hit and like everyone was talking about it, and now the second season has come out and I feel like it's been crickets. So if you're watching it too, let me know in the comments, just because I want to know that someone else out there is enjoying this as much as I am. We're only a couple episodes in and it's definitely started off slower, but now it's really picking up that we're back into the games, and I think it has some of the genius of the first season as well. So it's actually kind of exceeded my expectations for a normal second season, and I'm really interested to see where it's going to go. I've also just been doing a ton of jigsaw puzzles lately, which is something that I feel like always picks up in the winter for me. I just become obsessed all of a sudden. I'm going through probably like one or two jigsaw puzzles a week at this point. I love either putting on an audiobook and working on a puzzle, or like I'll throw on Gilmore Girls in the background and work on my puzzles in the evenings. It's just like such a cozy winter activity. I do have a couple favorites, like Gallison puzzles have been my go-to lately. So I'll put the links down below to some of my all-time favorite puzzles that I've been working on. So if you're also a jigsaw puzzler like me, you can check some of these out and hopefully find some new ones that you'll love. And then I'm also just like trying to figure out when to take down my Christmas decorations. It's such a hard decision for me because I love putting them up and I love having the house filled with these decorations. Usually it's kind of a slow process where like the week after Christmas, I'll take down my Christmas tree, but leave everything else up. But at this point, the Christmas tree is still up and I really like having the lights on at night. So I don't know when it's going to come down at this point. Maybe like my goal will be by the end of January to get like the specific Christmas related stuff down. But then I also have a lot of just greenery or kind of like wintry things. So those usually stay up till like February or March. But I'm curious, like when do you guys take your Christmas decorations down? Because it's always such a hard decision. Thanks for joining me on this reading update. Like I said, make sure you let me know if there's anything else you want to see in these quick little informal updates. And make sure you hit like on this video and subscribe to see even more from my channel in the future.